Hi, this is Misha, and carrying on with the First Contact fleet, the new ships seen in First Contact, at the Battle of Sector 001 with the Borg, we have the fan and producer favorite, the Akira. Specifically here, this is the USS Thunderchild, which is what you would probably call someone after eating a big bowl of chili. So we looked at the original ships here. We have the Steam Runner in Part 1. Then we had the Saber in 2. And then kind of the red-headed stepchild, but one I secretly really kind of like, the Norway. And I think the Norway actually has a neat little lineage with the Akira. And then eventually we're going to get to the Sovereign as well, of course. But the Akira was the last of the 4 new ships made for the battle. Probably the one given the most attention and detail, because it was the, in universe, the largest of the ships. This is classified as a medium cruiser, although some sources call it a heavy cruiser, but I think medium is probably more fitting considering its size and what it does. The problem with the Akira isn't the ship itself. It's that people love it so much they tend to want to kind of overinflate its capabilities and kind of overpower it. Length is a little hard to determine. On the low end, I found a source or two that claimed 440 meters. Most places agree 465, with a couple of places saying 500. But we see these kind of discrepancies all the time. You get the idea. Still a little smaller than the length of the Galaxy class, kind of on par with some of the just intermediate craft, a good medium cruiser scale. We have a crew of 500 to maybe 550, so respectable crew, much more than the other First Contact ships. This was obviously the heavier of the ships. There were at least 3 of these, possibly 4, at the Battle of Sector 001. And the Akira design actually dates back on paper, at least the idea, to the 2350s during the Cardassian Wars, when some designers were really just playing around with what if Starfleet made more of a combat-oriented ship. But the wars ended. Things like the Galaxy and Nebula were launched, more either exploration or scientific craft, and so this was pretty much shelved and never really went much anywhere. It was a very low priority ship. But then around 2365, the Romulans re-emerged, so we have a threat. Then the Borg were discovered, and then of course in 2367, the battle at Wolf 359 handily owned the Federation. So the formerly not really that interested in ship was given a very high priority and kind of fast-tracked, along with ships like the Defiant and Norway. These were, at least the first one, USS Akira, commissioned in 2368 or 2369, and were in full-scale production by 2370. So what do we have here? It is certainly a ship of war, although they always give the typical Starfleet nod to peace and exploration, because like you do. It has typical phaser arrays. The big point of contention are the Photon Torpedoes. It definitely has multiple. It has this weapons pod in the back, which can launch forward and rear. And it certainly has additional torpedo launchers in the front of the saucer and on the bottom. And I'll even grant that it has some on the side. So I'm going to say it has 6, 7, 8, maybe 10. But some sources say 15 launchers, photon torpedo launchers. And even some say 20, which is just going kind of overkill, frankly. It has 375 photon torpedoes on board, which is more than a Galaxy, but still less than, say, a steam runner. So if you had 15 launchers, that would be 25 torpedoes per launcher, and if you had 20, even less. So it just doesn't make sense. Sorry, guys, it just doesn't. It also has a massive shuttle bay in the front, and then 2 smaller bays in the back. And it is said that these 3 bays are connected internally. And the idea is it can, during wartime, launch small fighter craft out the front and then receive in the back. And during peacetime, it can launch shuttles at the front or rescue craft, transports, and receive them in the back, thus allowing for a very quick evacuation or support or whatever deployment. So it has both a wartime and a peacetime use. Likewise, this big pod in the back, which is a photon torpedo pod, a weapons pod. During peacetime, the designers made it where you could put a sensor or other mission-specific module there. So again, they give that kind of nod to science. But this is a warship. The bridge is here, and it's kind of protected by these pylons from the sides. We don't have a traditional engineering hull, but we do have one that's integrated into the bottom of the saucer here, along with the deflector there. A lot of people have compared this to an NX class. We can always, in universe, theorize that the designers kind of revisited the old NX and trying to make a warship, and they succeeded. As with the other the other Sector 001 ships, it has a very slim front profile and side and rear. Really only kind of wide top and bottom. After being in first contact, the Akira design would be transferred over to Deep Space Nine, where it would appear multiple times in the Dominion War. And it would also actually appear quite a few times in Voyager. It would be in Endgame, the final episode. We would also see it in episodes like Message in a Bottle, where it helped retake the USS Prometheus. As I said at the beginning, this was a favorite of the designers. They pretty much made this the secondary hero ship. It's the one that received a lot of attention, had a higher grade mesh, more polygons, although still by today's standards, what they did back then was considered pretty low. It was upgraded for Deep Space Nine and later Voyager. It was also a fan favorite, which I'm sure played some small part in why when they designed the NX-01, they kind of took inspiration from this. Why not? That's how designs work. I see it in firearms all the time. There have been a few models of this made, and it's appeared in a lot of games, but Eagle Moss has done this miniature here. And they're about to do a large-scale version. I don't know if I'll pick up the large scale. This miniature actually fits in well with the rest of the fleet, and I like the design. But it's probably not something I just gush over. It's neat, but I kind of like the other ships the same. I can't say this is really my favorite like most people. I don't dislike it, but I think that the Steamrunner, Saber, and Norway all have things to recommend them. But I definitely think it's neat, and it's nice to have a physical model to hold and really get an idea. I mean, I had a vague idea what the Akira looked like before, but now I really know. And that's cool. The model itself is well made. It's a good size. Of course, a lot of polymer because of how it's made, but the top is metal. It mounts on the stand quite nicely in the center. And I'm sure was something fans were waiting for. And that would explain why this was the first of the Sector 001 fleet that Eagle Moss released very early in the collection, well before the rest of the ships. And to be fair, it has appeared in quite a bit of Star Trek, both on TV, the movie First Contact, and many video games and fan fiction and novels and so on. So yeah, this is the last of our 4 supporting ships. Heavily armed ship for warfare, and that's exactly what it was used for. Not the newest design in the fleet, but not old. It's still quite modern and heavily armed. And it's definitely there for warfare. The USS Thunderchild. There was also the USS Rabin, named after the Israeli. The USS Spectre, which was the ship that helped retake the Prometheus. And we can assume the USS Akira. And many other unnamed ships seen in the battles in Deep Space Nine. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Just a fun little look. If you haven't, you might check out some of my other videos. Or if you haven't, check out our main page over at Mishaco. Any questions or comments? Just want to talk about nerd stuff? Feel free to do it below. And next up, we'll tackle the Sovereign. This is Misha, and I will catch you next time.